That looks really cute.
Oh, I love it!
Welcome to the Photography Podcast with your host, Mike Cassidy.
Hey, how are you, everybody? My name is Mike Cassidy, and I'm a boudoir photographer from New Jersey, and this is my show. What I do is talk with people who are just starting out on their photography voyages, as well as established pros, to learn about the hurdles they've had to overcome to get their businesses going. I'm looking to bring you personal stories which will help you connect to the fact that you're not alone in your struggles. Along the way, we'll probably have a few laughs, but the goal is to get you some actionable advice to help your business grow. So stay tuned. You never know what you may learn. Oh, hello. Greetings from the future. My name is Michael, and I am your neighbor. Welcome to the new year. I hope you had a relaxing and enjoyable holiday season. I had a busy Christmas, maybe my busiest ever. It's a really lot of work going on during a short period around Christmas. So in one way, it's nice when you finish that last photo book, you get everything out there, you can sit back and go, take a deep breath and relax for a few weeks. And I take some time off as we get into early January here just to recover. I take a little bit of a break, but only for a short time. They come back in action next week or the week after, and once again we'll be running all through spring. So I take some time. I get to relax a bit, watch a bunch of college football, and catch up on some sleep, and recover a bit from Christmas season. So all in all, it was good. Hope you had a happy holiday season, and thanks for tuning in today and listening. What have I been doing lately? Well, now that I have a few spare minutes, I've been debating again about whether I should go out and buy a new camera. I think I was going to start to do that last year, and then I put it off. I have a bit of a problem. As a Nikon person, I'm looking to upgrade to mirrorless, but if you follow that at all, it's a little bit of a mess out there when it comes to Nikon and their current mirrorless offerings. I want to stick with it. I've been a Nikon shooter my whole existence, and been on the fence a couple of times about buying a Z6 or Z7. And as someone who spends half of their life holding their camera sideways, at first it was no vertical grip with that camera. Then they came out with one that had no buttons on it, so I don't know whose bright idea that was to come out with a vertical grip with no shutter button or any kind of button. So I was very excited for that, and then that came out, and I was like, "Oh, what good does that do you if it doesn't have a button on it?" So it's been a wild ride. And then there's this rumored Z8 that's coming out that may have a vertical grip. Looks like it may have dual card slots, which was kind of important to me, but if it's like 60 or 70 megapixels, I don't know. I don't know if I need that much clutter. I don't know if in the boudoir world you need 60 megapixels. So I may be waiting a bit longer to see what comes along the path on the Nikon mirrorless road. It looks like the cameras that they work fabulous. They have beautiful pictures from those cameras, but there just seem to be missing a few of the features that I personally need and like to use. So it's been a waiting game, and I'm okay. I'm due, but I can hold out a little bit longer. It looks like soon they're releasing a D780, which is a regular DSLR. Could always get one of those. That would be fine. I can go in that direction. But I was really waiting for over a year now to switch to mirrorless. So I've been reading a lot, waiting, and looking to go in that direction. And it looks like I'll maybe waiting a little bit longer. I need to speak to a good camera guru on this show to get some advice in that direction. But that's enough about me. You're not here to listen to me talk. But today we have a good show. We have a good show. So if you're driving, just stop, just pull your car over and listen. No, really, just stop. Stop. Oh, that didn't sound good. But this is a good one. You're going to learn something today. We had some excellent guests on this episode. Today we'll be talking to Fabiana and Carlo Nicora, also known as Faby and Carlo. Faby and Carlo are London-based boudoir photographers who have been doing it and doing it well for a long time now. I think I first came across their work probably back in like 2012 or whenever Instagram first started, and been like secretly watching them. These people are much smarter than me about this stuff. You know, they get the bigger picture. They understand the business of boudoir. They understand about taking meaningful photos. They understand about finding ideal clients. They understand that boudoir is more than just a camera and a website. You know, so if you want to learn a bit about boudoir, this is the show to listen to. So stick around. And I'll stop talking now. And here's the interview with Faby and Carlo. Enjoy. Okay, and we are live, folks. So first I want to say thanks for coming on tonight. I know it's late where you guys are, and tonight we're speaking to Faby and Carlo. And so I just want to give you guys a moment to introduce yourselves and let everybody know what you do.
I'm Faby. I am 45 years old. I have been doing, I work with my husband Carlo, and I have been doing photography for the last probably 12 years. I'm very passionate about giving women's confidence, and that's why I have fell actually into boudoir photography. I am a tomboy with a feminine soul, but you know, I love giving women their confidence. This is my biggest thing.
And hello everybody, I'm Carlo. I think that for me photography is capturing something more than just a photo. It's a moment. It's, as Faby says, is confidence, and it's passion more than work. That's very important for me.
Yeah, and you guys have been around for a long time, too, because I remember even, I think, coming across your work, like in the beginning of Instagram, like 2012, 2013 or so, and seeing your photos on there. And, you know, you have a really unique style, I think, too, because I look at a lot of pictures, I see a lot of boudoir, and then a lot of it kind of all mushes together. But then there's a few folks that have the style that you really, when you see a picture and you recognize it, you're like, wow, I know who's taking that photo. So you do a great job in that regard. And then what I want you to do is tell me a little bit about how you guys get started and what was the genesis of the idea to get into boudoir. Were you doing something first, or was that your first thing you took art from the start there?
First of all, I wanted to thank you for the compliment. Yeah. Really, really appreciate it. They call our style a little bit European because it's a little bit of edgy, and it's a little bit of a fashion editorial mixed, you know, with something very sensual.
That's exactly right. That's how I would describe that, yeah.
And, well, we started photography probably 13 years ago. Of course, it was a hobby at the time. We didn't know exactly what we wanted to photograph. Something we knew for sure, it was we wanted to photograph people. So when we moved from Italy to London 13 years ago, we had a workshop with a photographer who actually teach us the basics, literally, of street photography at the time, because we were interested in street photography, because coming to London, it was such a diverse, beautiful,
different environment,
completely different environment. So it was very, literally every corner inspires you. It can be the architecture or anything, but you know, it was amazing.
Now, one other thing, in my opinion, is when you walk down the street of London, there are so many characters. There are so many people that have something interesting that it's very inspiring. And I think that the step that we want to do was going more into editorial, and that's where we tried to start. But there were things that we didn't enjoy in the fashion world. It is very strict. It is you have to portray one specific word, which we may not have agreed with. So then Boudoir happened by very lucky chance.
Yeah, we felt, because we were experimenting, with models, and one of them actually contacted us asking us to take pictures of her in lingerie, and we were like, we've never done this. No,
I don't know what I'm doing.
I don't know where to start. And so I was like, no, I really love your style. I really love your pictures in black and white. Let's give it a go. So we had a talk, and why not? We tried. And it was literally an overnight success, not only for the feedback we had, but also for the way that made us feel. It was natural. It was exciting. It was interesting. It was really, we found our passion almost immediately.
You felt like that's what you were meant to do.
Absolutely.
And I think that one of the key element was to realize that the more the women in front of us were slightly removing clothes, not only clothes were coming down, but all the masks that we naturally put in front of ourselves. So it became to be more of a psychology session, first and foremost, and the more we know the person, the more the trust relationship between photographer and person photographed grows, the more the photo speaks up.
Yeah, and I think that's something, and working in this field myself, that a lot of people on the outside don't, I think, understand the power that you have as a boudoir photographer. And also, maybe the better word is the responsibility, because you're really there to raise somebody's spirits and make them feel good about themselves. So it's so much larger than just taking pictures. It seems like there's a larger responsibility that comes with that job. And I think there are some people who just have that ability and can nurture that in other women and bring that out. I don't think it's something you can learn it to a degree, but I think you either have it or you don't. So is that something consciously that you're doing when people are coming in, aside from the photos, you're like trying to boost them or build them up?
I think it started unconsciously, and then consciously we understood what it was, the main ingredient for all of this. Definitely a person who actually comes to us, hardly has ever been in front of the camera before. Right. So they are absolutely terrified of the camera itself.
Nervous, yeah.
Absolutely. And then, of course, it's a question of vulnerability, because, of course, they're removing their clothes, they are even more vulnerable. So to allow them to be empowered and to be feeling beautiful, because that's the key, you need to make them feel safe, and you need to make them feel non-judged. Right. If they feel that, and they feel they can be themselves, well, a miracle happens. Right. They let go of all the worries and all the, it's, of course, it's a process. It doesn't happen in 10 minutes, but they feel that they can be themselves.
And I think also that our journey as photographer went through some bad mistakes, and I think those were the moment in which we learned the most. I think I still remember one client, and I think it's probably the only client which we completely failed to deliver because we gave her for granted. And the moment we were not 100% there for her, that's where the trust relationship get lost, and no matter how good the photos are, the person looking at the photo will not feel this connection to the image.
They're always thinking about what happened during that.
Yes, exactly.
That time.
And thank God that happened at the beginning, and it was a tough lesson that helped us moving forward very quickly.
Yeah. Do you remember your first real client?
Yes.
Do you remember the first person who handed you money and came? How much of it did that? I mean, I kind of remember my first person, and it wasn't a great situation. Like you said, I don't know what I'm doing. And you kind of figure it out as you go along. Do you remember at all, your first person?
I don't.
I do. Oh my gosh, I do.
because I think that the first year we didn't know exactly how to position ourselves, how to do things, and it was very blurry for me, and I still had 2 jobs at the same time. Right. but I think I remember after let's say moving up with our photography and the experience that we offer, jumping our prices, I would say 8 times, and the first client buying the biggest package that we had, that I remember. And I think that for me is the first client, because it's the client of me as an adult photographer, not anymore someone trying everything.
It kind of validated you, saying, wow, we really can do this. People believe in us. But a little bit, you're still like, I can't believe Absolutely. This person just gave me this money to do this. But I think what happens in this field of boudoir that I've noticed is that, and I have people who contact me every once in a while, I want to do what you do. People seem to wake up one morning with this inspiration that I'm going to make women beautiful. You know, this is my sudden inspiration in life. And they head off to like Amazon and buy the most expensive camera they can. And then they go on Squarespace and they get a website, and suddenly they're a professional like photographer. And I think what people seem to don't, or falls by the wayside, is the practice and how much work it takes to learn how to do not just the photography part. And I always liken it. I remember about 2-3 years ago, there was this woman who contacted me. She says, I want to do this. I want to do, but I don't know anything about photography. And she was starting her business. And I was like, well, look, I always explain it to people this way. If I was going to become like a professional guitar player and I knew absolutely nothing about playing the guitar, and I went to the music store one day and bought a guitar, and then I go online and create a website that says Mike Cassidy, professional guitar player, do you think people would be showing up at my door looking to hire me to put me in rock bands? I mean, it's like a silly idea, but yet people don't think of it in that terms when it comes to photography. They think buy camera, now I'm a pro. They don't think of it in the terms of the years it may take. And photographing women is so hard. And like you said, because it's not just the pictures, it's that whole nurturing situation. I think it's a very difficult situation to jump into and just start charging people, because I don't think any good can come of that. So like, what thoughts do you have about on something along those lines?
But you know something, I completely agree. Whenever we do workshop for photographers, one of the things I always say is, if you come and learn, I will not teach you how to handle a camera. I will not teach you how to expose properly. Those are the basics. Where we shine is in bringing a person that is absolutely terrified of being in front of the camera and making her behave as herself. That is the most important skills. You take a camera, if you take photos every day, give it a few years, you start becoming proficient, and then good, and then reliable. Okay? But that's technique.
I completely agree with Carlo. For me, it's incredible to think that you can do what we do just by taking a camera. First of all, you need to know your stuff. You need to know your gear, and that's it. You need to take it for granted. And then you need to almost orchestrate your feeling, the way you see people, how you treat the other person, how this person reacts, see the shape, try to figure out how she feels, reassure her. I mean, there are so many elements in play in play that is almost, I'm not saying impossible, but you have to master them all in order to be able to stand in front of a person, make her feel fantastic, right, and capturing what you see. Because, sometimes you see the person coming alive and you see beautiful, but what you see and what you can produce, if you don't have enough experience, they are completely separate things.
Right.
And only by making a lot of mistakes, believe me, I had tons of pictures where I think, oh my God, what was I thinking? But I had to start from somewhere. And every time analyzing those pictures, I was like, okay, this works, this doesn't.
And I think that there was a moment in our career when I realized, without knowing, we're proper professionals. And we were photographing a client in our own place, and she was a photographer. So the pressure was a little bit up. And for one reason or another, we did not have our backup camera with us. And during the shot, in the middle of the shot,
my camera broke.
One of the two camera broke, which means that I could take photo, I could focus manually and change, I think, the shutter speed and nothing else.
Exactly.
Literally, the back screen wasn't working, changing the ISO wasn't working, changing the aperture wasn't working. So in that moment, we let go. And we said, that's what I can do, and that's fine. And the image came out really nicely. So
you need to know your stuff.
Even with a wonky camera, the result was good. So in that moment, I was like, oh, I didn't realize so far, but I'm decent at this.
Right, because you knew the mechanics, and that's important because, like you said, when the technology fails, you still have something to fall back on, and if there's a person standing in front of you, the session must go on. And for people like you, or in your case, what would you say, aside from learning the art of boudoir and the art of that handling with the women, the nurturing of the women, what are some other struggles you think that you recall that were really obstacles to overcome getting started those first year or that first year and a half?
I would say getting clients through the door. I think that when you want to become a full-time photographer that specializes in boudoir, because 90% of what we do is boudoir, you need to have that constant stream of clients. And there are moments which are better. There are moments that are worse in the market. There are dip in the markets. There are great months. And I think that keeping a steady stream and understanding that if you want to be a good photographer, you have to be a good business owner, a good marketer, a good social media person. And I knew naturally that photography wouldn't have been the only thing to do. I still think going back now, I would have tried to learn marketing much earlier.
Yes. For me, it was also understanding my worth, funnily enough, because Carlo is always being a little bit more of the rational part of Faby and Carlo. Me, I'm like, am I doing this right? Is it going to work? And seeing, the stream of clients dipping down for me creates, of course, a little bit of anxiety.
Stress, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And understanding also, when Carlo for the first time said to me, okay, we raise our prices, I was like, are you mad? Nobody is going to come here and actually buy those pictures, for that price. Actually, he was right, because then it is understanding also for me who your ideal client is. We are talking about marketing, of course. But understanding who your client is fundamental. That's
and going after that person.
Absolutely, yeah. Because it becomes, when you do art, it's difficult because it becomes personal. Because all of a sudden, a person doesn't like a picture, you feel like, oh my God, they don't like what I am doing. But actually, it has nothing to do with you or your way of seeing. It's how they see themselves and how you do things. So you need first a detachment from that, and that understanding who is speaking. Is your client or is someone who actually just wants pretty pictures and not necessarily what you do?
Right. Yeah, it's tricky, and especially when you're starting, you don't know what to charge. You don't, like you said, you don't know what your worth is.
Yes.
I think people immediately want to tend to look at those around them and mimic what's going on, what they see, which may or may not might be the right thing to do. But I personally, over time, like everybody else who starts to get to some level of success, you start raising your prices and you try to find that point where you're going to keep the people coming in and still keep that, but not, like discouraging everybody from coming in. And where would you say, and well, first of all, maybe you could talk about a little bit about like the boudoir scene in London, and then where do you position yourself in that? Are you in the middle, the higher end? How do you sort of position yourself or put yourself in that whole scene there?
The scene in London is very peculiar, and for a couple of reasons. In the UK, glamour photography was I think probably the highest paid type of photography 15 years ago. And we're talking about something called page 3 of The Sun, which means young girls in topless.
I think I've seen that. Yeah.
So it's very much out there, but I don't think it's calling it artistic is the right thing. And so the market was there. When we started doing Boudoir, for us was something different. For us was about the person in the shot. It was not. It's not for the person that sees the image. It's for the person inside the images. How you see yourself. Fast forward a few years, the glamour market collapsed big time. It means that literally overnight, 5 big publications all folded, and all the glamour photographer decided that
to rebrand themselves.
Yeah, they rebranded themselves as Boudoir photographers. So
you mean the magazine photographer, or the newspaper photographers?
Exactly. So you arrived when there were, I think, 3 photographers in London to having probably
in the UK.
I think we were the first in London back then. Probably the second in the UK, and then you find yourself with hundreds of others.
All of a sudden.
Yeah. But this, in my opinion, has always been a good thing for the simple reason that the moment you can differentiate yourself, I don't think there is competition.
No.
Even when some good photographers start coming in, it was a welcoming change because you start looking at quality that rises and prices that goes up, which is a good thing because people will start realizing if I want good photos, I need to pay a certain amount of money. And I think that we started after the few hiccuping years, I would say, our prices start going probably towards the top in London, the highest. And we've always seen a lot of different pricing around, but it has never been about price shopping for us. So if you go on our website, you have never found our prices on our website for the simple reason that we're not interested in being
a price tag.
Exactly. But if you like our style, get in touch. That's the message. And I think that this has been for the past 10 years,
yeah.
I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it works because it's like, it's a good thing if you recognize my style, if you like my style.
Right. You're drawing them in. And your website is really good. I was looking at it over the past week or so. There's lots of information on there, lots of text. And like Faby mentioned before, there's lots of wording about how we're going to, culture you and you're going to have a great session and it's all tailored to each individual person. Is Boudoir like a growing thing where you are? Is it something that you see getting busier year after year? Is it something new to that area?
Well, it's difficult to reply to this actually because first of all, I know it sounds weird, but we don't look at competitors. We tend not to do it, and our stream of clients has not risen particularly.
No,
but we have more and more of our ideal clients coming in, and therefore fundamentally we have not lost money. We balance out with a little bit less clients, but the quality
more money.
Yeah, absolutely, the quality is fantastic, and that's. I don't know how to reply just because, of course, it's not like it's coming. It's more, we have a lot of inquiries.
The point is, I think the demographic of the client changed a bit.
Yeah.
In the sense that I would say that 5 years ago, we had 50% British client and 50% from abroad. Right now, it's probably 80% of our clientele comes from abroad.
Yes.
Maybe because...
Really? So
Yes.
they're traveling from
Yes.
France or somewhere to come in to Spain to come in. Wow, they're making that trip to see for lack of services, I guess, in that.
Either that or they work in London.
Oh, I see.
Or because they are on a specific trip, they want something unique. And that's one of the things.
They make arrangements with you while they're in town to go ahead and come and see you. Yeah, that's interesting. And I think that was always remarkable too. And I had someone coming from literally 8 or 9 hours away the other week. And I don't know how to react to that. You know, when someone's traveling, staying overnight, I'm like, for me, you know, so sometimes I think that's a sign that you've reached a certain level where people are traveling to come and see you. So it's always, when people calling me from New York or wherever coming, I'm still like, wow, I can't believe it. I don't let them hear me sound like that when I'm talking to them. But inside, I'm like, for me, they're traveling. So, you know, that's a great thing. And also, you know, I'm not too far from New York City. A lot of my people travel from New York City, which is still 50 or 60 miles from where I am, but it's a haul to get to my building. So people will travel, like you said. And I think that's a sign that you're really standing out. You have an item that somebody wants and they're willing to pay and take the time to come and see you. Is your work, is there a lot of weddings that you do? Is it holidays or what seems, or just because? What do people seem to come to you for?
Big milestones in life. I can see that our customer base at the moment is growing in age, in the sense that before, a couple of years ago, we could say that our clients base was between 27 years old and 40, 45 years old. Now it's tilted towards 35 plus. Yeah, literally,
it's going up a little bit.
Absolutely. And we had one of the last clients was 59. Amazing. Right. And I love this because actually women, they are doing it because they want to. It's not for someone else. At the very beginning of our career, there were a lot of, for example, brides-to-be that they were looking for, you know, a unique gift for their husband.
Gift, right.
Yeah. And then there was someone, for example, the first year of marriage because it's paper anniversary before having kids.
But I think that another big change, big switch in clients is in the beginning, this is a gift for someone else. Right now, there is this new era of women coming because they want this for themselves. Exactly. They want to see themselves. They want to realize that, hey, this is me, and it's great for me to look good.
And
is that, do you think, just from a marketing message? Is that, do you think, from the word that, say, you're putting out on your website? Or you think this is just something in the population where women are saying, I need to treat myself and I'm going to go do it now?
I think it's both, to be honest with you. There is a growing awareness, you know, in women. I think when you reach, especially when you reach a certain age, like 40 years old, all of a sudden you become a more mature person and you start knowing who you are and knowing what you want from life. And therefore, women, they embrace that a little bit more and they say, actually, this is for myself. Yes, you know, it can be also, you know, I can share it with my husband or my partner. However, they embrace that more. For sure, everything that we have written on our website, they read it really carefully, I can tell you that. And they know what is written. So you can tell they are really invested in what they do, and they do it because they want it. On the other hand, yes, we have big milestones in life as motivation. For example, after a pregnancy, before getting pregnant, then of course wedding is another one, but it's a small percentage. Even to celebrate a divorce.
Really?
Yes, funnily enough.
I'm back on the market.
Exactly.
I always wanted to do this.
But also, it's just because, for example, many of them, they had not a great relationship, and so their confidence dropped because of that, and so they want to flourish again, and they want to see themselves. Some others, for example, very few, because they have lost weight and they get fit, so they feel fantastic. But most of them, because they hit 40, 45, 50, and say, look, I'm not going to get any better. I'm doing it now.
It's all downhill from here.
Exactly. I want to celebrate who I am now.
Right.
And fundamentally,
one thing I have noticed, I've noticed too is even over the past 5, 6, 7 years is not only, like you said, the age group seems to be sliding up or at least widening till you get more and more people in their 40s and 50s. But right, more people I think are coming in doing these sessions for themselves. But I've noticed too, I've had to learn how to photograph someone who's 45 or 50 years old, different from a 24 or 25-year-old woman, different poses. The whole thing is a little bit different. So what is your experience with how do you treat people of different ages a little bit differently?
I think for me, from my perspective, it's one thing is how you use the light, and the second how you talk to them. Those are the only two things that I change. If they come to us, to me they are looking for what we do, so I don't change the style. Certain lighting doesn't work with certain age, and the conversation that you have is different. Is at a different level, and to gain trust is a different ballgame. This is for me.
You know what? We have a big advantage, in my opinion, the fact that we are in our 40s, and I am 45, and therefore I think that if I was, for example, 20 in my 20s and doing this kind of job, I would find very intimidating to be in front of a mature woman who actually knows who she is, knows what she wants, and she can be, especially some women, they have high power jobs. They are used to being in charge. They're used to have a lot of responsibility, and they are used to a lot of stress in their careers, and they have great careers. So when they are stressed out, and of course, at the first, in the first 10 to 20 minutes, they are scared like anyone else to be in front of the camera.
Right. They're not used. They feel not in control.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that can be terrifying for them. So there are two categories of women. One that actually say, you're the professional, I'm here, I trust you, I love what you do, and I'm here to have fun. The second one is, I want control, and they will do whatever it takes to actually get the control back.
Right.
Until you have to slow them down to a point where they can be present and just not ride, the wave of stress.
As Fabi was saying, if I was in my 20, taming, let's use the word taming, a very strong woman that doesn't want to relinquish control is very difficult. So it's a skill that you learn. But like everything else, I think it's just experience.
Yeah, but it's the fact of being quietly confident, and if you ride their wave of being stressed and being a little bit scattered, you're going to lose them. It's right. You need to be grounded.
And it's tricky because you're right. I had one, earlier this year or the year before, she came in, she's like, my boss doesn't know I'm here. She's working on her laptop the whole time. She keeps running. He doesn't know, and I can't miss this. And she was so stressed out during this session. We actually had to cut this short, and she had to leave because she was like so stressed, like going back and forth. But yeah, I know exactly what you mean, where some people are on the go, 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 and you're trying to get them into this mode, and they can't release from that work mode, I think, or they're not used to someone telling them, yeah, but this. And so you're right. It takes a special kind of personality, or what I found sometimes is like, trust just for a minute and I'll show you the picture, and then they're like, yeah, he kind of knows what he's talking about. And then when they see a little bit of that proof maybe in the camera, then they start to
we don't do that.
A little bit.
That's one of our...
Oh, you don't show anybody your picture?
Absolutely not. And I've been quite, I'm not saying bossy, but almost about it, because last client was very much, she really wanted not to relinquish control, and like, can I see a picture? Like, I'm sorry, no. And I explained her why we don't do that. And she's like, I understand, but do you mind?
I still want to see it.
Yeah, do you mind if I ask again? I'm like, yes, you can. Of course you can ask again, but the reply is going always to be no.
So bossy. You're so bossy. I know I'm not coming to see you. I want to see my pictures. So if someone's coming in to see you and work with you, who's primarily the photographer? Or if I'm contacting you today, how does that work? What kind of like onboarding process? Or when I come in to see you, do I have a selection of who gets the photograph? Do you both photograph? And I was trying to look at the photos to see if I could tell if they look that different. And I don't even think I can. I don't even think I can tell who takes what. So how does that whole part work out?
So the first thing is the inquiry can arrive, of course, via the phone, could be sometimes WhatsApp, an email, or a form that we have on our website. Then we reply to all of this, and we ask immediately for a telephone call, because what we want to do is to screen our client, fundamentally, the potential client, to see if she is an ideal client and if we can serve her well. Because if she is not an ideal client, from experience, we know that is going to be difficult, and so we screen our clients.
Right at the beginning.
Yes,
thanks, but no thanks. You're not the right fit for us. Yeah.
Actually, what we say is we are not the right photographers for you. Because we know that we are not going to serve that person well. She's not going to be happy. Whatever we do, we are going to waste a lot of time, and the result is always to be bad to mediocre. Full stop. Then if I convince her to have a chat, I'll have a half an hour chat where I ask them what is the reason why they want to go through a boudoir experience. And I ask them about their vision. Most of them, they don't know, but I try to gauge that. And then I tell them exactly what to expect if they want to go forward.
And so the let's say the face that initially they face is Faby. It's a woman-to-woman conversation, which is, I think, deeper. And also because I think that Fabiana is amazing at being empathetic and understanding people, and that's one of the super important skills. Yeah, absolutely.
I love people.
Yeah. And then in terms of who takes the photo, normally we're doing it together. Mm-hmm. Or if there are either time constraints or specific requests, then it's only Faby for the female only team. But I would say once a year.
Just they want female only in there. Yeah.
Sometimes they ask it's for religious reasons, or it can be anything, or just they feel more comfortable just with a woman. Mm-hmm. But normally I try to convince them, if it's not for religious reasons, of course, I try to convince them to have both of us, because I think for what we do it's important to have a male perspective and a female one, because that's also our strength.
Yeah, and being husband and wife, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And in answer to another question that you asked before, right at the beginning of our career, it would have been extremely easy to recognize which one was one of my photos and which one was one of Faby.
You've merged together.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we learn from each other. So in the beginning, if you would see a portrait, it was definitely mine. If you would see a body landscape, it was Fabiana. So, but growing together as photographers, we helped each other or challenged each other, maybe. So that right now it's very difficult to understand.
Even for us.
Yeah, for us it's very difficult to understand.
You look at the pictures, I don't even remember taking this one. I don't think I took this one. Well, I guess that's good in a sense, because it's consistency, and you both sort of have the same vision, so the product stays consistent. Mm-hmm. And I think that's important too, like I said, because there are some photographers that I can look at and I can recognize like their style and their work. And I think, your average person isn't going to really notice that, but someone who studies the work and can really see patterns in somebody's work or particular styles. Mm-hmm. And so when I get through all that and Faby allows me to come in for a session and I'm in there with you, how do you have a studio that you have in London, or where are you working, mostly at hotels, or where am I going to meet you?
We have a home studio, so we have a room dedicated in our place, a room dedicated to just boudoir, and we have a huge window that allows us to use natural light really nicely. Sometimes, like probably 10% of our clients, they ask us to be on location, and that can be rarely a hotel room. A couple of times it's happened, really. Otherwise, their place. Of course,
their own place.
Of course, we inform them that some of the the styles they've seen on our pictures, for example, they maybe cannot be reproduced, depending on how big the windows are.
You don't have the control.
Yes,
exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that in the beginning, we tried to use a proper studio. It wasn't working.
No.
For the type of women that we photographed that have never been in front of a camera, being in an environment that is relatable, it's super important. And I still remember one day we booked the studio, and it was very early in our career, and that studio got cancelled. So we didn't want to cancel the shot. We did it nonetheless in our old place.
Mm-hmm.
And it was so much easy to relate to the person on the other side of the camera.
They felt more comfortable.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and also because if you consider we are natural light photographers, so we don't use flash. We want to make it as easy as possible.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you there, and I think that's something that I find here in the U.S. a lot. There's a lot of photographers that sell boudoir sessions as boudoir when they're not. They're bringing people into a dark photography studio with lots of flashing lights. And to me, and again, for an art form, everybody has their interpretation, and there isn't necessarily one right answer. But to me, boudoir means like bedroom photography. Mm-hmm. You are in a bedroom. It's a little bit voyeuristic. And being in that studio just... People, like you're right, they feel homey when they come in. They're more comfortable. They're not standing around with giant ceilings and a cold environment around them, which doesn't lend itself, I don't think, to a lot of intimate photography. So I agree with you on that front, and I found the same thing myself. And so once we're in there and working, your work, and again, with the flash part, I think the equipment gets in the way, and I think you're 100% right there as well. And I think when women come in, I got to move this light stand, and I got to move this over here. I think that all gets in the way of the experience as well. I found that too. I work by mostly window light, and I do have one small strobe, like battery strobe I bring because cloudy days and so forth. But I think that all gets in the way of the experience as well. And you want to keep it just you and that person as much as possible to make that connection. Everything else kind of gets, I don't want anybody else around. I don't want any other people in there. And that makes a huge difference. And I think a lot of people miss that. And that's a very important element in creating beautiful photography. And the one thing I think when it comes to boudoir, there's definitely different styles. And again, there isn't one right answer to this. Mine is bright and cheery and cute. And then there is this school of darker, more dramatic type photography, which I can't do. I've tried, and I look at it and I'm like, yeah, not quite, you know. And so everybody sort of finds their way. I think you definitely fall into that more striking type of photography. Is that something, again, that was like a concerted effort on your part? Did you sit down, or did that naturally kind of flow in that direction?
I think naturally kind of, you know, flew in that direction because, for example, for me especially, I love when pictures are high contrast. I love the mystery. Don't get me wrong, I think as a person, I am split in two. So I have the fun, cheery, cute part, and that I love as well. Don't get me wrong, absolutely. I think it's necessary because I don't think a woman is just one thing. There are many facets to a personality. And there is also the darker side, the more mysterious side, the sensual side, that to me is difficult, as I see it, to be expressed with a lot of light. So I need darkness. I need, you know, when a person or just the outline of a body comes out of this darkness, just to let you imagine what it is. Because for me, being sensuality is not what you see, but is what you can imagine. And that's
implied, yeah.
And that's what actually makes me really passionate. It's something I'm drawn to.
And I think that from my side, I think a lot depends on smiley vs. not smiley photo. I think that our approach to sensuality is it's not about how you smile through your mouth, but what you convey through your eyes. So that's more important. So one of the questions that we get a lot is, should I smile or not? And the answer is honest, I don't care. But because I will not look at your mouth to create the expression. It's your eyes. And if you're there in that moment, if you're present, if you can translate what you have in your brain in your face, then if you naturally smile when you're sexy, you'll do it. If you don't, you won't. So it's not a preconception. It's just how things flows when we photograph.
Yeah, and it's definitely, like I said, you have a style. Your work is very, when you see it, you know who is doing it. And that style, I think, is very difficult to pull off, because I think a lot of people try that and it doesn't look good and it just doesn't work. But in your case, like I said, you've got it and it looks good. I think also in that style of photography, like you said, right, Faby, that it's just more of a sensual style where what I do is more cutesy or more beautiful. It's more impactful, I think, when you see that higher contrast type of a style. So that's people that definitely, I think, they recognize in your work and they come in and they're looking for that kind of a photo book or album. Are you mostly doing albums for people, or
actually very rarely we do albums? First of all, because we are absolutely not good at selling them. It's work. It's just, you know what, we have this idea. Okay, the British world is very conservative on the surface, and so people they don't talk about what they do. They don't talk, with their friends if they're going to have a boudoir photo session, but because they are so it's difficult for an album. There are two reasons why you want to have an album. One is because you want a chronological story. So to have an album, you have to have a story. This is at least our view. Mm-hmm. So what we sell individual images in a beautiful folio box. Because in this way, being so private as the British are, they have the possibility of taking away or taking out of the box all the pictures they don't want to show to their friends. It's very versatile as a type of product, and we find it that works really well. For example, with our clients that come from outside the UK, yes, definitely albums. For example, especially the Europeans, French people, definitely they want an album. But they ask the album. Normally we never sell it. We are not good at that.
Interesting. Yeah, that's an interesting thing that because here I think it's mostly albums. Mm-hmm. And again, because it's a tangible item, they like it for weddings and Christmases and so forth. So handing them something like that is great. And I just want to go back a moment. See, like here in the United States, I've also noticed over the past 8 years, like boudoir was scandalous. I mean, like you said, people didn't talk about it when they were coming in. Oh my God, see someone in a bra, forget about it. And now I have women in my sessions like live streaming themselves on Instagram and do, while they're there. And people are posting these photos like everywhere. They'll doing prints and wall art of themselves. It's such like a dramatic change where this has become more mainstream here, and people will talk about it. They share their books with their friends, and everything's like, look at me. But I think what has happened too is that has pushed the line of what people who want to be edgier in their photos go a little bit further now to kind of stay a little bit ahead of the curve. Now, have you noticed in your case where people may have been coming in where 5 years ago you may have not been getting requests to do, and I don't want to bring up specific things, but things that maybe you wouldn't have seen, and 5 years ago you would have, I'm not doing that, but now you think, well, maybe now that's something that is like new within that range of doable photos.
Absolutely. There have been a change. First of all, we want to come to the US because here is still taboo. They don't definitely don't really? Do that. Yeah. But however, definitely we have noticed a change in the requests, and actually people are more comfortable actually asking.
And I think that
I find really interesting.
The limit people have has changed. The perception of what boudoir borderline erotica has changed, and there is also something else that goes together with the idea that women do this for themselves. Women more often than not want to explore their
sensual side.
The sensual side. They are almost curious to see, okay, I can try, I can see what is there. And so that is from one side. And the same thing, the same change has been in couple boudoirs. The line was very, very conservative 10 years ago. It's not conservative right now.
At least we have requested.
And you're okay with that? And
it depends.
Yeah, and you're able to adjust and sort of say, okay, this seems what more people want. I'm going to accommodate them, in that regard, or you want to stay within those bounds originally.
We had an ethical discussion about that, because at the end of the day, we were receiving more and more requests, especially from couples. And we've always drawn a very, firm line on what is acceptable and what is not in front of our cameras. To be honest with you, we had discussed about it. We were not comfortable in certain occasions, but we said, well, let's give it a go, because until we try, we don't know how it's like. We never went through with clients because somehow probably our communication was a little bit, not confident enough for them to actually book the session and go through it. But we tried with models, and we had no problems, to be honest with you.
I think that from a photographic perspective, nothing changes if you are completely dressed for a portrait session or totally undressed for a fully nude session or more. And I think that realization is another step in the oh wait, I woke up today and I realized that I've been a professional for the past 10 years. And it is about, one of the questions that some clients ask to Fabiana is, aren't you jealous of your husband?
Oh, yeah.
And the answer that Fabiana asks is, would you be jealous if your husband was a gynecologist? No, it's a job, it's work. And I think that our commitment is to create photos of which our client can be proud. 20
years from now, not thinking, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Exactly. Because that for me would be the biggest insult I can do to a client.
Yeah.
Right. So you're open to that. Yeah. And this is because I've struggled with that too over the past couple of years, getting requests that I will accommodate now. Like you said, 5 years ago, I would have, especially with couples, because couples now, I think, want to be much more intimate and they're okay with that. It's not so much as implied. They're, and ultimately, like I said, and I struggle with that. And I said, and I would turn people away at first when I would want to know up front. And then the more I thought about it, I'm like, if these people are happy and if you shoot it within certain parameters, not to be graphic, but you keep things looking artsy or you keep things looking nice. I guess, again, like you said, I tried it and it was okay. It's not that I advertised that, but to go that way and people are happy. And ultimately, like I said, this is a business, so I guess it comes down to how much do you want to go to accommodate your client. And the woman I was with today, this is an interesting story. I was with this woman today, and I was telling her, she's like, people are always curious, like, what's the wildest thing that happens? And I say, we wouldn't have enough time today.
We agree.
To really. And I was telling her this one story about 4 or 5 years ago. Maybe it was a little bit sooner. I have a lot of women who are escorts who come from New York, who now that's apparently very public here. People have profiles, they advertise. Again, I don't ask, but we do these photos for these women. And this woman was contacting me in the emails, and she's like, I want to do this kind of photo. And she's like, I want to do these afterglow photos. I don't know what the heck she was talking about. So I let it go. And then we get to the session. Very nice woman. And we're going through this, and she's doing all her photos. And she's like, well, I want to do, these afterglow photos. And I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. Explain it to me. And she goes, well, these are these type of photos that we take when the woman is climaxing, to get the facial expressions and during that process of, I'm like, so how do we do this? And she goes, oh, well, I have my vibrator with me and I'm going to go in and you're going to, and while I'm going through, and like, this is really what we're going to do. And so I'm like, okay, so we go through this whole thing but that's only the beginning of the story. So this all comes and goes. And maybe like a month later, 3 weeks later, I was with this other client, and this very, I don't know if you know this, like soccer mom type woman, really nice, very cute, and she's talking to me, and she's like, my husband would never, can't believe I'm doing something like this. I am the most boring woman in the world. She goes, I want to know some of the exciting things that, people are doing when they come in here. So I'm thinking, you really want me to? So I'm telling her, well, handcuffs we use with some women. I'm nothing crazy behind the back. She goes, no. And I told her about this afterglow kind of a thing. She goes, you know what? I'm going to do that. So I'm like, oh, here we go. And then what have I gotten myself into? So we get into this, and I'm like, how am I going to do this? And so she was prepared for some reason. She had like these vibrating undies, these vibrating undies on, and she's having the time of her life. And I'm sitting here going, oh my God, what are we doing here? So we get through this whole thing, and I'm like, it's not kind of what's going on from the waist down. It was more in this area. She's lying, and it was more about getting her in these poses. And I'm like, how could this face? It's hard to forget that this face is staring you. So I'm like, she was and after she was done, we were looking at the photos, and she was laughing, and we were like sort of cracking up, and she was having the best time. And then I got home, and I started to look at these pictures, and I was cropping them down, and then I realized she was lying there with these super dramatic like poses, and I showed her, turned them into black and white, and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe that these pictures are me. And there was a series of about 4 or 5 of them, and she was like shocked. And the moral of the story, well, not really, the end of the story, she got her album, and she wound up getting these photos as like wall art. And she has them up in her house, like big prints and a series of smaller ones. And she goes, this is the best story ever for my friends. Because when it looks like a picture, initially it doesn't even look like her. Because it's all, and then she can tell him, you have no idea how these photos came about. Wow. So for her, it was like the best thing that ever happened to her, in like this little secret that like sort of made her month and her year just from a little pair of like vibrating undies. So I think like at that point, I said, if somebody wants to go down that road and it gives them that much joy, who am I to like take this happiness kind of like away from them? So I think that's my one little story where I kind of saw that maybe even doing something like that, where I never would have thought about it like years ago, kind of turned into like a positive in some way. So that's my kind of weird story about of going through and doing something like that. Yeah, then I went home and cried for like a day after like having to do that. But I think that's a like kind of a change that we've all seen in boudoir photography over the past couple of years, and we've been almost in here an hour, folks. So I don't want to keep you on too longer. I know it's getting late tonight, and what I want to do is really personally thank you a lot for coming on, spending this hour with us for the show. And what I want you to do is tell everybody where they can find you online, your website and your Instagram and so forth.
So I think that pretty easy. If you Google Faby and Carlo, Faby and Carlo, you'll find us. Instagram is Faby and Carlo. Our website is fabyandcarlo.com.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. But we wanted to thank you, Mike,
exactly.
For the fantastic opportunity. It doesn't happen very often, actually, that we talk about boudoir photography, and it's something that actually we are really passionate about.
Interested in.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think also normalizing, in a way, boudoir photography is so important.
Yeah. And I think this was a great opportunity, like I said, because there's a lot of people, and this whole idea came about where I would get messages like once in a while from people on my Instagram, just people like, I know you're probably not going to respond to me because you're like this photographer, but I was just curious about, and they would ask me like questions. Yeah. I'm like, well, I'm not like someone that's not approachable. So, and I thought, there is probably a lot of people out there who would like to listen in on a conversation like this, that they can really learn something. So that was really like the genesis of the idea. So it is really fabulous to have someone like you guys on here to talk about this for an hour. Yeah, because I think there's a lot of people who are interested in this and interested in learning about photography and how people do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, thanks a lot for having us on board. It was a really pleasure. Nice chat.
Thank you. And thanks. And hopefully we'll be talking to you again in the future. And I'm going to check up on you and see how many afterglow photos you're doing. So, we're going to check in on you. And thanks, guys. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much, Mike.
Okay.